So we have a very exciting, very busy session on tools, methods, and metrics, innovation and validation. The cliche, if it doesn't get measured, it doesn't get done. That is a cliche because it's probably true. It's also a massive challenge when we're talking about the long chain from agriculture or agri-food systems and nutrition outcomes. There are many steps in that chain, there are many stages, many pathways, and I think it's absolutely crucial for us if we are to be serious and if we are to ensure accountability for nutrition-sensitive agriculture and nutrition-sensitive agri-food systems to be able to figure out the key metrics, the key indicators and the mechanisms for tracking those indicators. We have goals and commitments and targets which are SMART these days, and the M in SMART is measurable. We need to match that with the ability to track what is actually happening, not only what is the end result, but the pathways and the different steps along that. So I'm going to go through, as I say, very busy. We have 8 minutes per presenter. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce the first presenter, Jesicca Heckert from IFPRI, and she will talk about development and validation of a health and nutrition empowerment module for the Women's Empowerment in Agriculture Index. Jesicca.
Many of you may be familiar with the Women's Empowerment Agriculture Index. This is a survey-based index designed to measure the inclusion of women in the agricultural sector. It was developed jointly by IFPRI, USAID, and OFI in 2012, using similar methodologies to other multidimensional poverty indexes. In the past 3 years, we've been working to develop a project-level WEA, which is specifically designed to measure the impact of agricultural development projects on women's empowerment. So why do we need an additional survey content that focuses specifically on women's empowerment related to health and nutrition? Many agricultural development projects that aim to empower women also have nutrition-sensitive objectives. These projects may aim to increase the consumption of foods produced by the household or increase women's income so that they are able to obtain food and health inputs. It's important to capture the multidimensionality of women's empowerment. For example, women who have control over when a cow is sold might not have control over healthcare seeking or be able to allocate certain foods to herself or her children. The WEA has focused primarily on women's inclusion in agriculture and the productive domains. The health and nutrition module we are developing focuses more specifically on aspects related to women's own health and the health of her children. These indicators are necessary to help us better understand gender-related nutrition-sensitive pathways. The ProWEA is being developed in collaboration with 13 agricultural development projects, shown here in purple and green, with clusters of projects in South Asia, East Asia, and East Africa and West Africa. You're seeing presentations related to many of these projects throughout ANH week. And so 6 of these projects, those shown in green on the map, specifically agreed to pilot the health and nutrition module. 3 of these projects are in Bangladesh, 2 in Burkina Faso, and 1 in Mali. Theoretically, the WEA is grounded in 3 different types of agency. The first is power within, or intrinsic agency. That's in the green circle, and this can be thought of someone's internal sense of agency. The second one in gray is power to. This is instrumental agency, and this is the power to enact change or make decisions. The outer circle in purple is power with, or collective agency, and this is reflective of power gained from working with others. The health and nutrition module complements this theoretical framework and focuses on aspects of instrumental agency, or the power of women to leverage resources in favor of health and nutritional status of herself and her children. So in the ProWEA Health and Nutrition module, we first asked who in the household makes decisions about certain topics. We then asked to what extent she participates in those decisions. I'd like to highlight the importance of this second question, to what extent. From previous work, we learned that a very high percentage of women contribute to these decisions, as these topics relate closely to her own body and the children who she cares for. However, it's unclear if she has a significant voice in the decision or if she's simply told what to do. we asked these questions for topics related to women's own health, such as consumption of animal source foods, diet, healthcare, whether to rest or work, and these experiences during pregnancy and/or lactation. We also asked questions related to child health and nutrition, such as whether she can offer the child animal source foods, seek health care for the child, and also breastfeeding and weaning decisions. We consider important health and nutrition products, such as hygiene products, medicine, and specific foods. For each of these items, we also ask who makes the decision to purchase it. Many of these products may be acquired through means other than by purchase. Therefore, we ask whether she's usually able to acquire the product through some means, whether by purchasing it, cultivating it, or having someone get it for her. The module so far has been implemented in the baseline surveys of the projects that I mentioned a few slides back, and I'm going to walk us through the methods that we've used so far in 3 aspects of this work. One being cognitive interviewing, also our process of identifying indicators, and then establishing for cutoffs for adequacy. So many of the questions we used were adapted from existing surveys. We wanted to ensure that these questions were understood as intended. So we used cognitive interviewing as a method that can identify potential sources of survey response error, whether it's in understanding certain vocabulary in the question or formulating a response to these questions. I'm not going to talk extensively about these findings, the findings of this sub-study, but I just wanted to mention that this was part of our process, and these findings have helped us reword questions so that they were more well understood and could get responses. Our next step with identifying indicators, we moved on to identifying potential domains using a factor analytic approach, both exploratory factor analysis and confirmatory factor analysis. We had the goal of a ProWea that would be the same over multiple contexts, but be reflective of experiences in the different regions. So we did a split half exploratory factor analysis on each of the 2 largest samples, one in Bangladesh and one in West Africa, and then we used a confirmatory factor analysis approach to test the other samples. Throughout this process, we identified 7 indicators: control over women's own health and diet, control over health and diet during pregnancy, and these first 2 items emerged as 1 factor in Bangladesh and 2 in West Africa. So for our final indicators, they're split, and that simply means they'll be more correlated with one another in Bangladesh. The next 2 indicators are control over child diet, specifically giving animal source foods, and then breastfeeding decisions. So our next indicator is freedom to seek health care, whether for pregnancy, illness, or for one's child, and freedom to make essential nutrition and health purchases, and then access to these essential health and nutrition-related items. Next, we move to developing definitions of adequacy and cutoffs, and throughout this process, we looked at sensitivity of indicators across alternate definitions, and we drew on insights from qualitative works that our projects conducted, and we also used a normative approach so that essentially said that if too many women were empowered, it was likely not an accurate definition, and then we also used this to shorten the survey. So for all of these indicators, we settled on women having sole input or a high level of input on all activities. And for the purchasing and access indicator, she had to participate in all of these decisions or have access to all of these items. This shows the percentage of women who achieved adequacy on each factor. And so importantly, I want to note that these are not population level samples, but rather projects, and the samples were different in each. And so be cautious of comparisons across the regions based simply on this work so far. So in conclusion, our next steps, where are we going? So we're continuing this work, and we're able to working on establishing further evidence of external validity. And so once we have follow-up data from our projects, we'll be able to also use them to identify impact. Thank you.